The door slammed. Screams echoed. Something snapped. I never saw it coming. The truth? It wasn't just him I had to save. Then the knock came. Everything changed. My name is Michael Winters. I'm 43 years old, and until recently, I thought I had life figured out. I wasn't rich, but I had a decent job as an architectural designer, a cozy apartment in the city, and an overwhelming sense of contentment with the way my life was unfolding. That all changed the moment my estranged younger brother, Josh, reappeared after nearly 2 decades of silence. To say our relationship had been rocky would be an understatement. We never really got along ever since we were kids. He was always the rebellious one, doing whatever he could to break the rules, while I was the good kid, the one who listened to our parents and stayed out of trouble. Eventually, our lives diverged. I moved away for school, he stayed behind in the small town where we grew up, drinking with friends, partying, and generally living life as if consequences didn't exist. But that all came to a head when Josh got arrested for a DUI, and it wasn't his first. He was facing some serious jail time when he reached out to me. He had no one else to turn to. I'll admit, I was hesitant. The last time I'd seen Josh, he was standing at our parents' graves, drunk off his mind, blaming everyone but himself for the wreck of his life. But there was a part of me that wanted to be the bigger person, to be the brother I wished I'd had when I was growing up, despite everything. So, I said yes. I let him move in with me. Big mistake. Josh showed up on my doorstep with nothing but a duffel bag full of his old, tattered clothes and a sense of entitlement I hadn't expected. He immediately made himself at home, tossing his dirty laundry around and leaving the door wide open when he came in and out, as if my place was just another extension of his teenage bedroom. I tried to ignore it, thinking he might just need time to adjust. Maybe I had been wrong to expect things to change so quickly. But no, Josh was still Josh. And then, one day, as I was coming back from a meeting at work, I walked into my apartment to find him sitting on the couch, watching my TV, which I had just bought a year ago. And in his hand? A half-empty bottle of whiskey. I froze. He looked at me and said, "Hey, man, can you stop being so uptight? I'm just trying to relax here." It was then I realized that I wasn't helping him, I was enabling him. The thing is, Josh was never a bad guy at his core. He didn't know how to be anything else. He wasn't raised to be responsible, to be a man who could stand on his own 2 feet. He never learned that growing up because our parents had always made excuses for him, always bailed him out when he made mistakes. They loved him too much, in my opinion. They had a soft spot for him, and I always resented that. But after he moved in with me, it became clear he was playing the same game with me. And I was letting him. "Josh, I can't keep doing this," I told him one night after another of our endless arguments. He had been drinking again, and I had just come home from work exhausted. "You need to get a job, pay your own bills, and figure out your life. I can't keep supporting you like this." He didn't take it well. Of course, he didn't. He looked at me, his eyes filled with confusion and a sense of betrayal. "You don't get it, Mike. I've got nothing. I'm just trying to get back on my feet." I sighed, feeling that old frustration bubble up. "It's not my responsibility to fix your life, Josh. I'm your brother, not your dad. You need to start taking responsibility for your actions." I'd expected a fight. What I didn't expect was what happened next. He stormed out of the apartment, slamming the door behind him. It was the first time in months that I'd actually felt like I was getting through to him. But then, the next morning, I woke up to a knock at my door. It was a police officer. "Are you Michael Winters?" the officer asked, looking solemn. "Yeah, that's me. What's going on?" The officer handed me a piece of paper, a summons to court. Josh had gotten himself into something more than just a drunken fight this time. He had been caught stealing from a local store to feed his alcohol habit, and now he was facing charges for petty theft and public intoxication. That was the final straw for me. I knew right then that I had to stop trying to be his savior. I had spent years trying to protect him, trying to clean up his messes, and look where it had gotten us. I couldn't keep doing it anymore. But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A week later, my niece, Kelly, came knocking on my door. She was 17, the oldest of Josh's 3 kids. She looked at me with a mixture of relief and sadness. "Uncle Mike," she said, her voice trembling, "I need your help." "Mom, she's gone." Gone. That's how Kelly described it. Diana, Josh's ex-wife, and the mother of his kids, had simply left them. No explanation, no goodbye. One morning, she packed up her things, left a note, and vanished. "Where did she go?" I asked, heart sinking in my chest. "I don't know," Kelly said, her eyes wide with fear. "But we've been on our own for days now. Grandpa's too old to help, and Grandma's in no condition to take care of us. Can we stay here?" I didn't even think twice. Of course, I said, pulling her into a hug. You and your brothers can stay here for as long as you need. What I didn't realize was that this was the beginning of something I never could have predicted. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I found myself raising 3 teenagers, Kelly, 17, Tyler, 15, and little Ethan, 12. They were smart, independent, and resilient, but they were also scarred. It was clear that their mother's abandonment had left them with deep emotional wounds. They didn't trust easily, and I could see the weight of their upbringing on their shoulders. I tried my best to be there for them, to guide them, but it wasn't easy. The pressures of work, being a father figure I wasn't prepared for, and dealing with Josh's erratic behavior took a toll. There were nights when I would lie awake, feeling like I was drowning, and other times when I felt like I was failing them. Then, just as things were starting to stabilize, I got a call from an unknown number. Mike? A familiar voice. It was Josh. Josh? What do you want? I asked, feeling my blood run cold. I need help, he said, his voice hollow. I've hit rock bottom. I don't know what to do. Can you come get me? That's when it all came crashing down. I hesitated before responding to Josh. His voice sounded so different, so desperate. For a moment, I was tempted to ignore him, to leave him to his mess like I had for years. But then, I thought about Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan, and how much they had been through. If they could forgive him for abandoning them, maybe I could find a way to do the same. Where are you? I asked, my voice more neutral than I felt. Damn near the end of the world, Josh muttered, a bitter laugh following his words. I'm at a truck stop off Highway 27. No one here even knows my name, Mike. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I had a million reasons not to go, but deep down, I knew the one thing I couldn't do was leave him stranded, not when he was asking for help. If nothing else, I couldn't be as bad as him. I'll be there in an hour. Stay put. I hung up the phone, the weight of what I was about to do settling over me like a thick, suffocating fog. I grabbed my jacket and left the house. The kids were at school, which was probably a good thing. This wasn't something I wanted to explain just yet. I didn't know how to explain it to myself, honestly. The drive to the truck stop felt longer than it should have. Every mile that stretched out before me felt like another hour of my life I couldn't get back. I couldn't believe that, after everything, I was still trying to be the person Josh relied on. If he thought he could just walk back into my life after all these years, he had another thing coming. When I finally pulled into the truck stop, Josh was sitting on the curb, a far cry from the brash, overconfident kid I remembered. His clothes were worn, and his face looked older, more worn out than I'd ever seen it. He was staring at the ground, his hands wrapped around a half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey. He didn't look up when I parked. He didn't move. I got out of the car and walked over to him. You're really scraping the bottom now, huh? I said, my voice colder than I intended. Josh's head snapped up, his eyes wide and glassy. He blinked a few times before he recognized me. Mike, he muttered, his voice cracking. I didn't think you'd actually come. I didn't say anything. I just stood there, watching him, waiting for him to explain why I should be the one helping him again. I don't deserve your help, Josh said finally, lowering his gaze again. I know that. But I'm at the end of my rope, man. I don't have anyone left. Everyone I ever loved is gone, and I'm just lost. I didn't want to feel sympathy for him, but his words hit me harder than I thought they would. I took a deep breath and sat down beside him, making sure I didn't touch him. So, what now? I asked. I don't know, Mike. I really don't. But I thought if anyone could understand, it'd be you, Josh said, his voice barely above a whisper. I stared at him for a long moment, the weight of everything, our past, his mistakes, my frustrations hanging in the air between us. Finally, I shook my head. You don't get it, Josh. I've been trying to understand you for years. I've been cleaning up your messes for way too long. But you don't ever try to fix anything. You just ask people to fix it for you. I know, man. I know. I've been a mess, okay? I don't know how to fix myself. And now, I don't know how to fix anything. He sighed heavily, staring out into the night. I've hurt everyone who's ever tried to help me. It was true. But hearing him admit it wasn't enough. Not after all these years. Not after everything he'd done. You know what the worst part is? I asked. You never really cared about anything. You never cared about your kids, your ex-wife, not even your own damn life. And now you're sitting here telling me you're sorry? You think that's going to make it all better? Josh's face twisted in shame. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words didn't come out. He just sat there, looking at the ground, defeated. I felt a rush of frustration, but it was also mixed with something else. Maybe it was pity, or maybe it was the part of me that still couldn't let go of the idea that, somewhere deep down, he could be better. But for the first time in a long time, I realized I wasn't doing him any favors by keeping him around. "We're done, Josh," I said firmly. "You need to get your life together. I can't keep being your safety net. Not anymore. I've got enough to deal with. And honestly, you're not even trying to change." Josh's face fell, but I didn't feel bad. I couldn't. He was a grown man who had made his choices. It wasn't my job to fix him. "Please," Josh begged, his voice breaking. "I don't know where else to go. I'll do whatever it takes. Just, give me one more chance." I stood up, the finality of it all sinking in. "I can't do that," I said, turning to walk back to the car. "You've had enough chances, Josh." As I drove away, I felt a weight lift off my chest. For the first time in years, I was finally putting myself first. No more drama, no more cleanup. It was over. The next few days passed in a blur. I tried to go back to my routine work, the occasional dinner with friends, even catching up on some of my favorite shows. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Josh was still looming over me, like a dark cloud I couldn't escape. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, his eyes full of desperation. I tried to tell myself I did the right thing. I had to be tough on him. It wasn't healthy to keep enabling him. But the nagging feeling wouldn't go away. Then came the phone call. It was late, and I was already in bed, half asleep when the phone rang. I squinted at the screen, unknown number. I almost didn't pick it up, but something in me made me do it. "Mike," Josh's voice crackled through the line. "It's me. I need you to come get me again." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What happened now, Josh?" I asked, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. I don't know where I am," he muttered. His voice was shaky, full of panic. "I've got no money, and no one will help me. I just need you, Mike. Please." My head spun. He was really asking for help again. After I just told him to get his life together? I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around the phone. I could already feel the familiar pull, the guilt. I knew this wasn't just about helping him, it was about keeping myself from feeling responsible for him falling apart. "Where are you?" I asked, my voice tight. "Somewhere near Riverdale," he answered. "Please, I don't know what to do. I can't be alone again. I didn't want to go. I really didn't. I had made my choice, hadn't I? But then, that damn soft spot of mine kicked in. The one I hated. The one that still saw him as my brother, no matter how many times he let me down. All right," I sighed. "I'll come get you." I grabbed my keys and threw on my jacket. As I pulled out of the driveway, my mind raced. I hated that I was doing this again. But deep down, I knew why I couldn't just leave him stranded. Even if he didn't deserve it, I did. The drive to Riverdale took forever. It felt like my headlights could never reach the end of the long, empty road. When I finally found Josh, sitting in the parking lot of a rundown gas station, he looked worse than ever. His face was pale, his hair greasy, and his clothes were the same ones he had been wearing when I last saw him. He had a bottle of something in his hand, his fingers shaking as he stared at the ground. I parked next to him, and he didn't even look up until I opened the door. His eyes were red from crying, and his face was a mask of shame. "Mike," he whispered. "I've ruined everything." I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at him. I could see the desperation in his eyes, but also the guilt. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I'm done with this, Josh," I finally said, my voice hard. "This is the last time. I can't keep picking up your pieces. I'm not your savior." "I know, Mike. I know," he said, his voice cracking. "But I've hit rock bottom. I don't have anyone left. And I'm so sorry for everything. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore." I stared at him, my mind racing. What could I possibly say to this? What could I say to a man who had already been given every chance in the world, and yet continued to waste it? "Look, I'm not going to do this forever. You can't keep calling me every time you screw up. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to you," I told him, my voice even but firm. "You need to get yourself together. I can't keep being the one to bail you out." Josh nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "I get it. I really do. I've been terrible. His voice caught in his throat. "I just don't know how to fix it." How do you fix something when you've broken it beyond repair? I didn't have an answer for him. Not this time. I wished I did. I wished I could tell him everything would be okay, that he could somehow turn things around. But deep down, I knew better. "Just get in the car, Josh. We're going back," I said. We're not having this conversation anymore. As we drove back to my apartment, I didn't speak. I couldn't. There was too much to say, but none of it would matter. The words felt hollow now. I had already said everything I needed to say, but nothing had changed. When we finally got back to my place, I helped Josh upstairs, but I didn't offer him any promises. He sat down on the couch, his shoulders slumped. I wanted to tell him to leave, but instead, I found myself offering him the same thing I always did, a place to stay. For how long? I wasn't sure. But the next day, I came home to an even bigger shock. I had just finished a meeting at work when I got a message on my phone. It was from Kelly. "Uncle Mike, something's wrong. Mom's back. And she's demanding money." My stomach dropped. Kelly had never been close with her mother, and after everything that had happened, I thought Diana was out of their lives for good. But here she was, apparently back and causing trouble again. I couldn't believe it. I had spent years trying to raise Josh's kids, my nieces and nephew, and now, Diana was back to reclaim what? Money? Her so-called rights? I called Kelly immediately. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She showed up out of nowhere, Uncle Mike. She came to the house and started asking for money, saying she wanted to make up for the past, but it's all a lie. She only cares about what we have now that we're doing well. She keeps telling us we owe her, Kelly said, her voice shaking with frustration. I took a deep breath. I knew this was coming, but I didn't think it would happen so soon. Diana had always been manipulative, but this? This was something else. She didn't just want to reconnect with her kids, she wanted their money. "That's not going to happen, Kelly," I said firmly. "We're not giving her a damn thing. You're doing well now. You've worked hard for it. Don't let her try to guilt you into giving her what you've earned." But the worst part? Diana wasn't done yet. She was only getting started. The following days felt like a whirlwind. I tried to keep my distance from Josh, trying to give him the space he needed to figure things out, or at least give me the space I desperately needed to breathe. I told myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was no longer responsible for fixing him. But every time I looked at him, I saw the same broken person I had seen years ago, and my guilt crept in, wrapping itself around me like a thick, suffocating fog. But it was Diana's sudden reappearance that really started to break me down. Kelly's call was just the beginning. After the whole money incident, I started hearing more and more from relatives about Diana's behavior. Apparently, she had begun spreading rumors, telling people that I had stolen her children away from her and that I was somehow keeping them from her. I was used to her dramatics by now. What shocked me wasn't the fact that she was playing the victim again, it was the sheer audacity of it all. After everything she had done, after abandoning her kids, she had the nerve to paint herself as the martyr? I couldn't even fathom it. But then came the message that changed everything. It was from Diana. I had blocked her on everything, but she'd somehow managed to get through to me via a new number. The text was short, blunt, and laced with that same entitlement I had grown so tired of. "I want my children back. You've had your time. I've changed, Mike. They belong with me, and I'm coming to get them." I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, my fingers itching to reply, but I knew what I had to do. Diana didn't get to make demands like this. She didn't get to come back into their lives after abandoning them for years. The anger that surged through me was almost too much to handle. I couldn't let her do this. I wouldn't let her manipulate them again, especially not now that they were finally thriving. I needed to do something, and I needed to do it fast. I called Kelly immediately. She didn't pick up. I left a message, "Call me when you get this. We need to talk about your mom." When she finally called back, her voice was shaky, and I could tell she was trying to keep it together. "Uncle Mike, what's going on? What did she say to you?" I took a deep breath, running a hand through my hair. "She's coming for you, Kelly. She's not done. She thinks she can just waltz back in and take over because she's changed." "I knew it," Kelly muttered, her voice bitter. "I knew she wouldn't let us go. She's going to try and make us feel guilty." "No, she won't. You don't owe her anything," I said firmly. "I know you've been through hell with her. You and the others. Don't let her pull this on you again." Kelly stayed quiet for a moment, then sighed. "I don't know what to do. I don't want to go back to her, Uncle Mike. I don't want to be part of that. But I don't know how to make her stop." "We'll figure it out," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "I won't let her take you. Not again. You've come too far." "I'm scared, Uncle Mike," she admitted, her voice breaking. "What if she tries to take me to court or something?" I hadn't even considered that. The idea of Diana dragging this into legal territory made my stomach turn. But I wasn't about to let her win. Not now. We'll fight her, I said, my voice determined. I'll get a lawyer. I'm not going to let her tear everything apart. You're with me now, Kelly. And we're not going anywhere. A few days passed, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Diana was always just one step ahead. She wasn't making things easy, and the more I heard from relatives, the more I realized how deeply entrenched she was in her delusions of being the victim. She had even started posting on social media, claiming she was rebuilding her life and was ready to take her children back into the fold. I could feel the walls closing in. Diana was manipulating anyone who would listen, painting herself as the misunderstood mother who had been wronged by the world. Meanwhile, Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan were staying with me, trying to ignore the storm brewing outside our door. But I knew it wouldn't be long before Diana would escalate. And then she did. It started with the letter. I opened the envelope with a sense of dread. It was official looking, too official for comfort. As I read through the pages, my stomach sank. Diana was suing me for custody of the kids. The letter was full of accusations about how I was alienating them from their biological mother and making them resent her. She even claimed I was manipulating them into thinking she didn't care. I was furious. How dare she? She had abandoned them, left them to fend for themselves while she ran off to live her life. And now she was trying to paint me as the bad guy? I could barely focus as I read the rest of the letter. The nerve she had, accusing me of things I hadn't done. Of course, she had no evidence to back any of it up, but that didn't stop her from trying. The system could be manipulated by people like her. And if she had enough people believing her story, who knew what could happen? I immediately called Kelly and told her about the letter. She was quiet for a long time, and when she finally spoke, her voice was shaky. What do we do now, Uncle Mike? I didn't have a clear answer. But I did know one thing: we couldn't let her win. Don't worry, Kelly, I said, my voice steady. I'll get a lawyer. We'll fight this. You're not going back to her. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of what Diana might do next. Scared of the lengths she would go to make her story seem like the truth. And then, as if on cue, I got a call from Josh. Mike, his voice was low, almost apologetic. I don't know what to do, man. I screwed up. I didn't mean to bring all this on you. I didn't know what to say. I had barely heard from Josh in days, and now he was calling, acting like he cared? It felt like too little, too late. What do you want, Josh? I asked, trying to keep my frustration in check. I just want to help, he stammered. I know I've messed up, but I can still do something. I'll take care of this. I'll talk to Diana. I'll make her back off. I was silent for a moment, trying to process what he was saying. Was this genuine, or was he just trying to get out of trouble again? You're not going to fix this, Josh, I said, my voice harsh. This is between me and Diana. You've already caused enough damage. Josh didn't say anything after that. I hung up, the weight of everything settling on me. Now, it wasn't just Diana I had to worry about. I had to worry about Josh, too. But one thing was clear: I was done playing mediator. The storm was coming, and this time, I was going to be ready. The next few weeks were a blur of legal consultations, frantic phone calls, and sleepless nights. Diana's custody case loomed over us like a storm cloud, and every day, it felt like I was one step closer to losing everything I had fought for. The kids had been through so much, and now, it seemed like their past was coming back to haunt them. I knew we needed to prepare for battle. I wasn't about to let Diana waltz back into their lives, demanding what she had long abandoned. I called in the best lawyer I could find, Nina Carter, a tough-as-nails attorney known for her no-nonsense approach. She promised me she would fight tooth and nail for the kids. You've done everything right, Mike, Nina told me one afternoon. But we need to gather evidence. Diana's claims will hold weight unless we can prove she's unfit. The thing was, the evidence against Diana was hard to gather. She had a knack for covering her tracks, making it seem like she was the one who had been wronged. She was skilled at manipulating the narrative, painting herself as the victim in every story. I had no doubt that if the case went to court, she would do everything in her power to make me look like the villain. But the one thing she couldn't take away was the bond one had with Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan. I had been there for them when no one else had. I had raised them, even when it seemed like they were lost causes. They were my kids now, in every way that mattered. The days leading up to the court hearing were filled with tension. Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan stayed at my place most of the time, trying to maintain their composure. I could see the fear in their eyes. They didn't want to go back to Diana. They had seen the worst of her, and they weren't about to let her drag them back into the mess she had created. But it wasn't just the kids I had to worry about. Josh's role in all of this was becoming more complicated. Despite the mistakes he had made in the past, he was still their father. And that was something Diana was going to use against me. One evening, just days before the court date, Josh called me again. His voice was quieter this time, less sure of itself. "Mike," he said, almost apologetically, "I need to talk to you. About the kids. About everything." I didn't know if I was ready for another one of his emotional pleas. But I couldn't ignore him this time. I picked up the phone, my mind racing. "Go ahead," I said, trying to sound composed. "I know I've screwed up," Josh started. "I've never been there for them, and I never will be. But I don't want to see you get hurt because of me. I don't want to be the reason you lose them." The words hit me like a punch. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time Josh had ever taken responsibility for anything. "I don't need your help, Josh," I said, my voice tight. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." "I get that," he replied. "But I just want you to know that I'm not going to fight you. You're the one who's been there for them, not me. And I think you deserve to keep them." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. For the first time, Josh was actually doing something right. He wasn't asking for my forgiveness. He wasn't asking for a handout. He was finally stepping aside, recognizing that the kids needed me more than they ever needed him. "I appreciate that," I said, my voice softer than I intended. "But this is between me and Diana now. You don't have to get involved." "I know," Josh said. "I just wanted to say it. And I'll back you up. I'll stay out of it. But I'm still your brother, Mike. I'm still here, even if I've been a screw-up." I ended the call, a strange sense of relief washing over me. It wasn't perfect, but it was the first step toward healing. For the first time in years, Josh wasn't a liability. He wasn't a threat to the kids. He was just out of the way. The day of the hearing arrived, and the tension in the air was palpable. I showed up early with Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan, each of them standing beside me like they had always belonged with me. They were my family now, no matter what anyone said. Diana wasn't there yet, but I knew she would show up. She was never one to back down from a fight, especially when money was on the line. When she walked into the courtroom, I barely recognized her. Her hair was done up perfectly, her clothes crisp and immaculate. She looked like she had it all together, like she was the picture of motherhood. But underneath the polished exterior, I could see the same manipulative, self-centered woman I had always known. She walked past us, not even sparing a glance at the kids. Her eyes locked on me, filled with that same coldness. It was clear she didn't care about them. She cared about winning. The hearing dragged on for hours. Diana's lawyer threw accusation after accusation, claiming I was unfit, claiming that I had alienated the kids from their mother. But every time they tried to paint me as the villain, Kelly, Tyler, and Ethan spoke up, each one telling their truth. They spoke about their mother's abandonment, about the time she had humiliated them, about how she had chosen herself over them every single time. By the end of it, the judge had heard enough. He turned to Diana, shaking his head. "I see a woman who has repeatedly failed to provide the care and stability these children need. I also see a man who has stepped up in every way a father should." It was over. Diana lost. She tried to argue, but the judge had already made his decision. The kids were staying with me, and Diana had no legal grounds to take them away. I couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph. It was over. Diana was out of our lives for good. But even though we had won, there was no joy in the victory. The damage had already been done. The years of emotional scars Diana had left on the kids would never disappear. I just hoped, for their sake, they could begin to heal. In the days that followed, Diana went quiet. She didn't show up to our house again, and I didn't hear from her. It was like she had vanished. I didn't know if she'd try something else down the line, but for now, I could breathe easier. The kids, despite everything, were starting to find their footing. Kelly had applied to college, Tyler had started a part-time job, and Ethan was doing well in school. I couldn't be prouder of them. They had come so far from where they had been. As for me, I finally felt like I could let go of the past. I had done everything I could to protect them, to raise them right. And in the end, they were the ones who had made it possible for me to move on. They were my family. And nothing, not even Diana, could change that.